Good, cold, gray, gloomy morning to you folks. So yesterday I told y'all a story about something that happened to me, and I left a little part out of it, but I'll get to that in a little while. Anyway, it was about a haunted house, and somebody told me that they would be interested in hearing that. So I thought I would tell it. It's pretty interesting, but it's not like your traditional haunted house story at all. Now, I'll give you the layout of this house because it was a really cool house. Actually, I'd love to have it now, ghost and all. I'd be just fine with it. So naturally, I wasn't scared there. But when you walk through the front door, which we never use, we use a side door. But when you walk through the front door, it was a 20 by 20 foot room, which was like an entrance hallway. And every room except for the kitchen was attached to this entrance hallway. And every room had open and closed doors, even the kitchen and living room. So when you walk in, first thing was my room to this side. Right next door was my parents' room. And as you entered, there was two doorways. There was the bathroom door and what we called the weight room door because that's where my dad kept all his weight equipment, his gym equipment, his bench press thingy. I don't know what it's called. But yeah, he was a weightlifter most of my life. And right to the side of that was the kitchen, which again was not attached to the dining hall. The entrance hall. And right as you walked into the entrance hall, on this side was the living room. The living room and the weight room were attached to the kitchen. And again, open and closed doors. I love houses with every room has an open and closed door. It's also kind of nice to have the whole open floor plan too, but these rooms were big enough you didn't really need that. This kitchen was huge. You could put 5 or 6 dining room tables in there and walk around them without a problem. We did have a dining room table right as you walked in on this side. And there was one of those big freezers, like the old type that you could put 20 bodies in, open and close on top. And to this side, there was a refrigerator as soon as you walked in. A line of cabinets and sink. I mean, you was not out of cabinet space in this house unless you had 30 kids. It was nothing but cabinets, up and down. And they were nice, clean, nice, accessible cabinets. And at the end was the stove, and to the side of that was the back door. And this back door had like the doorknob with the open and close thing. Just the doorknob thingy until my incident happened and they put more locks on the doors. Well, again, this house was not, this haunted house story is not like other ones. We did not see things out of the corner of our eye. There were, of course, pops and cracks, but it was an older house. So it's supposed to pop and crack. You could hear footsteps once in a while, but nothing you could be definitive about or, oh, whoa, who's in here kind of thing. Just one or two, and you're like, how was that? And that was it. But the reason I knew it was haunted was because every single night, and I mean every single night, I had a dream about a guy who told me he was dead, told me where his body was, and who killed him. We lived there from about the time I was 9 years old to the time I was 15, or, somewhere in between there. I might have been 11 and 15, I can't remember. But young and then 15. I also learned later in life, since I've gotten older, that you can't make up faces in your dreams. That's why most of the time faces are blurry, in your dreams, or you put another face to it and you'll think you're talking to somebody, but it's actually this person. So, I'm sure everybody has had that experience. But that wasn't the case with this guy. He had a clear face, eyes, nose, lips, distinguishable features. He had a nice jawline. He wasn't one of those men you go, whoa, or yeah. He was okay, either way you put it. Nice fella, about 20 years old, brown hair, brown eyes, white guy, white skin tone. Probably about 5'10". I don't think he was really extremely tall, because I'm 4'11", so somebody extremely tall, I'm like, oh, whoa. He wasn't like that, but he was taller than me. Well, anyway, we had talks every night, and most of the talks literally were about much of nothing. He did tell me about his family, his mom and dad. He was going somewhere for concerts. That's what brought him to that area. And this was a place called Mount Olive, North Carolina. The little house was on 150, and it was on park property. The older people who had owned it sold it to the park, and they lived in a house behind it and had lifetime rights to their house. Well, Sloan Park eventually decided to sell this house and have it moved so that they could use this for park property, which is ironic because that was like 25 years ago and they haven't done it. But anyway, yeah, it's still just a blank piece of property now. The house was nice. I liked the house a whole lot. And I wasn't scared there, even of this ghostly guy. But he would tell me all kinds of stuff. Like, I don't remember what concert he said he was going to. But he liked concerts. He loved going to concerts. And this was in the late 60s, early 70s, I believe he said it was. His car had broke down. The only house around was these people who, by the time I came along, was an older couple. But at the time, they were a younger couple. He knocked on the door. They allowed him to stay overnight till he could call his parents the next morning, but he never got the chance to. Sometime in the middle of the night, he was beat to death. They kept all his belongings, which he had, I think he said about $600 on him, and in the 60s and 70s, that's a lot of money. So this kid had some money. Don't know who he came from or who his family was. I don't remember him telling me that. I do believe he said his name was James, but like I said, this was years and years ago. So I don't remember really talking about his name very much either, and or calling him by his name much either. But every night he would tell me about it, and he always wanted me to get my dad to get his body down, which he believed was wrapped in an old electric blanket type blanket, and up in the attic crawl space. And this attic crawl space was actually in the weight room over top of either the washer or dryer, but it was in like a little nook, and you would climb up in there. Well, anyway, and I did tell my dad about it, but he always kind of thought, and I don't blame him because that is a hell of a story. Dude, this dude's coming to me in my dream. He's dead. He's up in there. Can you, check? Now, eventually, I know I told him, you need to just tell my dad because he's not listening to me. He said, I have told him. He ignores me. And that sounds very much like my dad. It really does. And, so he said that, like I said, the older couple that now lived in the house behind us had murdered him back in the late 60s. And I don't know if there's any truth to it or not. And I wish to this day that I had more information about it, so that I could look it up and see if he was genuinely a real person. I do believe in my heart of hearts that he was a real person, because I could see the face and because it was a nightly thing. It was not once every couple weeks, once a month. It was every single night we had conversations. Every night. I remember this guy to the T facially. And he's not somebody I've ever met before, not somebody I've met since. He doesn't really look like anybody I've ever seen. He was very distinguishable. So, I might actually put some research into this. I've never really thought about doing that, but I should. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And if I find out anything, I'll get back to y'all about it. But I've always been curious about him. But of course, over the years, I've stopped thinking. Now, later, my dad said he did look up in that attic crawl space, but it was not a small crawl space. The crawl space went all the way across the house on both sides, and that particular area was somewhere in the middle of it. He said he looked kind of in there and kind of pointed the flashlight. Now, he didn't have one in good new flashlights like they got now where you can see into the woods from 40 years. He had the older type where you push the button and it was kind of like a dim glow yellow light. He said he didn't see anything, but he wouldn't rule it out because it was a big area and it was dusty and there was old boxes here and there. And but he never went up in there because it wasn't a very big area. My dad's kind of a big man. Not fat, but a larger man. Again, at the time especially, we had a gym room, his own weight room. So he was that kind of guy. And my mom at the time was like this big around. She was so tiny. She ain't now, but she was at the time. And I don't think she gained weight till she was like 45. And that's pretty killer there because I did not make it that long, obviously. So I'm going to put some research into this, see if I can find anything that kind of correlates at all. Maybe somebody that went missing with that name, somebody that loved to go to concerts, somebody that was last seen in that area. But he even said they kept his car. So I don't know. And I've always been curious about it. They were nice old people. We lived in front of them for like 5 or 6 years. They were nice. They were genuinely nice. Here's another interesting thing. When the house was sold, and again it was moved from that property somewhere else, the people who bought it knew one of my aunts who told her that house was haunted. And they didn't really elaborate on it. I always was curious. I'd love to see where that house is now. I wonder if there's a way to find out, like if the house was bought and moved somewhere, what the new location is. I don't know. But anyway, that's my haunted house story. Now, I have some real scary stories, or scarier stories anyway, that are probably better than this one. But this one was more, to me, realistic and more truthful in my life, because this was an every night thing, something I lived with, and it's not like your other stories where you're seeing stuff out of the corner of your eye, and no, this was pointed. This was, hi, how you doing? Here I am. So yeah, I've always been curious about this. And the story I was telling y'all about the other day, where I didn't know if it was ghostly or human, the spirit in my dreams told me it was a human. And I believe it probably was, but like there's still some things that leave me scratching my head. And the part that I left out, let me just start over with that particular story anyway. I was asleep on the living room couch. Don't know why I slept in there, but I was asleep on the living room couch, pillow, blanket, all of it. So I felt something grab my head, and I grabbed it. And the part I left out is when it pulled back, it left marks right up my head. So obviously there was no not believing me. My parents believed me. I screamed. My dad came running through the house with a .357 long barrel revolver. I mean, this was a big gun. This is one of the guns that's hard to aim real well because it wants to point downwards. So I love that gun though. I really do. But anyway, so they came straight away. As soon as I screamed, my dad grabbed his gun, and my mom came running, and the kitchen door slammed. Not the back door, but the kitchen door, the interior kitchen door. It slammed. And after that, my parents put a lock on that door too, just in case, so we could lock that door in case somebody did come in through the back. But the back door was still locked. That's why my husband's leaving work. He got off early today. He just told me. But anyway, we never figured out if that was really a human being. And the reason it was so shocking to me, I don't know if y'all heard that, but there's a puppy trying to get through the front door. So I'm going to get off here and let her in before she tears my house down. Good Lord. She's tiny. She's literally this big. But anyway, I'm going to get off here. I've been talking forever. But that's my haunted house story, the one we really lived in. I would love to find that house today. I would live in it with no problem. Especially that kitchen. The size of that, good Lord have mercy. Every room in that house was big. And it wasn't a huge house, so But anyway, much love to you. I'll see you guys soon.